One thing we know about this Pope is that he's not afraid to challenge everyone's thinking on issues, frankly, one way or another. And I admire his dedication to the poor and his work to protect the sanctity of life. And frankly, I respect his right to speak out on these important issues.
It's nothing new to have the leader of the Catholic Church seek to become a leader in issues other than religion. Do your homework. You'll find popes have always been seeking to be more than just a man in flowing robes. Pope Francis has indeed made his mark, however, to many of his followers, and they believe it's the wrong one. Critics also hammering away at the Church, seeking to be a moral leader when they themselves have plenty of dark issues in their recent past, indicating a lack of attention. The view from America is one thing. The view from Rome is indeed another. Edward Pentin is the Newsmax Vatican correspondent and thus understands the politics and pageantry of the Vatican. We turn to him for the latest. Edward, it's always a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you. And this specifically comes down to the insiders at the Vatican, first of all. Do they now, knowing what the Pope said about the need for climate change and taking care of the planet, secretly wish that he had been a little less pushy, maybe?
There's certainly a mixture of opinion, Ed. It's certainly true. I mean, there are lots of people who are very concerned about the Pope weighing into something which they say is beyond his competence. I mean, climate change, scientific things are not really what the Church should weigh into, they say, and so he's going into areas which he shouldn't do so. I mean, it's quite interesting that this venture into climate change has, brought quite a strong response from some climate change skeptics, Catholic ones. For example, Lord Monckton of Brenchley, who's a prominent climate change skeptic, said that the Encyclical is scientifically illiterate and gets every material climatological fact wrong. So that's just one aspect from one critic about the climate change issue. Others are very happy, though, about it and say, it's the science is there. They say there's a consensus on this, and then in fact the Church, has no choice but to go along with this and really speak out against it. I mean, the Encyclical itself is quite contradictory. It says clearly that climate change is a fact, established fact. There's no doubt about that. But it also says that it can't come down definitively on any science. So you're left wondering, well, there's contradictory statements in this Encyclical, and yet they clearly come down on climate change.
Ed, this Pope has done so much right. He's gotten so much correct in going forward, trying to push the Church forward and trying to at least get some discussion going in so many other areas. Is it, though, distinctly possible now that this Encyclical, and again, with a lot of the mistakes that you've mentioned, a lot of the errors, the missteps as well, that he's now going to lose a little bit of that push that he's had? He's been looked at so well now, but now this is going to leave a lot of people to doubt whether or not he really is the wonder Pope, if you will.
Yes, well, it depends, I think, Ed, on who you talk to. But I think he has, as you say, he has had a lot of good standing on the world stage. He's been very popular. And I think a lot of people will actually see him as in a more favorable light after this. So it's difficult to say. Others won't, of course. But it all depends. I mean, I've just written a piece for Newsmax on this, and I think some people hope that, he'll be, with this perhaps enhanced standing which he might get from this Encyclical, it might help him to promote the Church's teaching come September when he speaks to the UN and visits the United States. On the other hand, it may not. But that's the hope among many Catholics, that in fact it will boost his standing and give him greater influence on the world stage.
Ed, from a political standpoint, about a minute or so that I have left here, how is it viewed in Europe, in the Vatican and others there, when you hear the American politicians going, we don't need our Pope talking this way, we don't get our information, if you will, from a man of God, because there's been such a strong pushback here, and I know that indeed every time an American politician speaks, sometimes people in Europe cringe.
Yes, that is true, and there's certainly a different reaction across the pond than there is here. But there is, I mean, just take the example on business. The Encyclical it's sort of all the positive aspects about business, which he mentions in the Encyclical, which aren't many, to be honest, obviously get clouded out by the negative comments that he puts in it. But he is actually quite favorable about business in the Encyclical if it serves the common good. But that, as I say, gets crowded out by all of his, it's almost rhetoric that's sort of from Latin America, which sort of is anti-capitalist and and any word of prophet is considered a bad word. And that is a problem, I think, for this Pope. And I think it's something he's going to have to tackle in the months going forward, especially when he comes to the United States in September.
I got about 15 seconds left. Do you think maybe the Pope just goes nudge, nudge, wink, wink? At least I'm getting everybody to start talking about it.
I think there is an aspect about that in him, certainly. He likes to stir up a debate and make a mess, as he says. And I think this encyclical, because it covers so many issues, it's got a lot of people talking about those issues. And I think that's what he wants.
And I got to tell you, personally, I do like somebody who likes to create a little bit of a mess. It's always fun. By the way, we want to remind everybody, if you go to Newsmax.com, Pope issues urgent climate plea. That is the article written by Edward Pentin. Ed, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again, my friend. Be well and stay with us because the fastest 60 minutes in news continues.